My granddaughter tried to warn me, not with big words or accusations she was too young for that, but with fear in her eyes. Fear she didn't yet know how to explain. And I wish, with everything I have, that I had listened sooner, because nothing could have prepared me for what I eventually found hidden inside my own son's phone. I had been living in Bryce's house for nearly 3 years. He never called it my home, not once. He made sure I remembered that every wall, every light switch, every inch of that place belonged to him and his wife, Tanya. What he never mentioned was that half the renovations had been paid for with my savings when I first moved in. Money I gave because I believed family meant safety. I was almost 70, and my body reminded me every morning. Years of nursing had ruined my knees. Diabetes meant my life ran on schedules and medication. Still, I woke early every day, moved quietly through the kitchen, and tried to make myself small. It never worked. Bryce would glare at me over his coffee and mutter, "You eat more than you're worth. You're not family, you're a bill." That was how my mornings began, with the son I once carried on my back reducing my life to an expense. Tanya was sharper, crueler. She would toss a dirty towel toward me and say, "Wipe the counters, Eleanor. Those shaky hands are only good for ruining things anyway." She never said my name kindly, only when she wanted it to hurt. They didn't even call me Mom anymore. I became her or that woman, as if the word itself disgusted them. I tried to earn my place. I folded laundry until my fingers cramped. I watched my granddaughter, Tessa, after school so they wouldn't need a babysitter. But Tanya twisted everything into an insult. If I helped, I was taking over. If I rested, I was lazy. They banned me from opening the refrigerator after 9 p.m. if she eats at night and dies in her sleep. Tanya snapped once. I'm not taking responsibility. They spoke as if my survival were optional. The only light in that house was Tessa. She would run to me after school, wrap her arms around my waist, and whisper, "I love you, Grandma. You're the only one who listens." Bryce hated that. "Don't make her weak like you," he warned. "The world eats people like that." But Tessa only held on tighter. And looking back now, I realized something chilling. She wasn't clinging because she loved me. She was clinging because she was afraid. And the night I finally understood why my granddaughter was so afraid was the night I realized my own son was planning a future where I never woke up. The warning signs were small at first, so small I ignored them. A pill bottle moved from where I left it. A skipped dose I didn't remember missing. A strange heaviness in my body that came and went without explanation. I blamed age. I blamed sickness. I blamed myself. I never blamed my own family. Subscribe to my channel for interesting stories. One evening, I fainted in the hallway. I remember the ceiling spinning, my legs folding beneath me, and Tessa screaming my name. When I woke up, I was on the couch. Bryce stood over me, irritated instead of worried. "You scared the child," he said. "If you can't handle yourself, maybe you don't belong here. Not are you okay. Not what happened. Just blame." Tanya brought me a glass of water and forced a smile. "Low sugar, probably. You really should be more careful." But later that night, as I lay awake, something gnawed at me. The taste of that water, bitter, metallic, wrong. The next morning, I noticed my medication organizer had been rearranged. Pills missing, others doubled. My heart pounded as I counted them again and again, hoping I was mistaken. I wasn't. When I asked Bryce, his face hardened instantly. "You're confused again," he snapped. "Stop accusing us because you can't keep your own life straight." Tanya laughed. "This is exactly why elderly people shouldn't live with family. Always paranoid." That was when fear settled in my bones, not sharp, not loud, but deep and cold. Days passed. The weakness returned. My hands shook uncontrollably. Sometimes I couldn't remember what day it was. Tanya watched me closely during meals, correcting how much I ate, how much I drank. Even when I went to the bathroom. Too much water isn't good for diabetics, she said casually one night, pushing my glass away. Tessa noticed everything. She began slipping notes into my pocket, little folded scraps of paper with shaky letters. Grandma, don't drink it. They get mad when I help you. Please be careful. My chest broke every time I read them. One afternoon, when Bryce and Tanya left for work, Tessa pulled me into her room and locked the door. They argue about you, she whispered. They say when you're gone, the house will be peaceful again. My breath caught. Gone how? She shook her head, tears spilling. I don't know, but they say it all the time. That night, I couldn't sleep. My heart raced. Every sound felt like a threat. Around 2 a.m., I heard Tanya's voice in the kitchen, low, careful. She's getting weaker, she said. Bryce replied coldly, good. That was when I knew. This wasn't neglect. This was intention. And the next morning, I made a decision that could either save my life or end it sooner than they planned. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. That was the hardest part, not screaming, not running, not confronting them, just acting. I moved slowly through the kitchen, smiled when Tanya watched me, and swallowed the pills she handed me without hesitation. But I didn't swallow them. I let them rest under my tongue, waited for her to turn away, then slipped them into a napkin and hid them in my pocket. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure she could hear it. For the first time in months, my head felt clear. That alone terrified me. When Bryce left for work, Tanya lingered in the doorway, eyes scanning my face like she was checking for cracks. You look better today, she said. That's good. It didn't sound like relief. It sounded like calculation. As soon as she left, I locked myself in the bathroom and examined my medication bottles carefully. Some pills weren't mine. The labels had been peeled off. Others were the right color, but the dosage was wrong. My hands shook as I flushed them down the toilet. That afternoon, Tessa came home from school and froze when she saw me standing upright, steady. You're not dizzy, she said softly. No, I whispered. I think I finally know why. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. I was scared they were going to make you disappear, she said. Disappear. Children don't invent words like that without hearing them first. That night, Bryce and Tanya argued loudly behind their bedroom door. I pressed my ear to the hallway wall, my pulse racing. The doctor said it would look natural, Tanya hissed. Bryce replied, then speed it up. I'm tired of waiting. My knees buckled. I realized something then that cut deeper than fear. They weren't panicking because I was sick. They were frustrated because I wasn't sick enough. I knew I couldn't stay. But leaving wasn't simple. My money was controlled by Bryce. My phone plan was in his name. Even my medical records were routed through his address. I was trapped by paperwork and blood. That night, while they slept, I packed quietly. Just essentials, medications, documents, Tessa's notes. I hid the bag under my bed. The next morning, Bryce announced he and Tanya were going away for the weekend. You'll be fine alone, he said flatly. Just don't cause problems. I smiled weakly. Inside, I was planning my escape. As soon as they left, I called the only person I trusted, my sister Margaret. We hadn't spoken in years, but when she heard my voice, she didn't ask questions. She said one word, come. I took Tessa's hands and knelt in front of her. If anything feels wrong, I told her, you call your aunt. Promise me. She nodded, tears falling. Don't let them hurt you anymore. I hugged her one last time, and then I walked out of the house where my life had almost ended. But leaving didn't end the danger, because what I discovered after I escaped proved they had already planned what came next. Margaret's house smelled like lavender and old books. The moment I stepped inside, my body finally reacted to what I'd escaped. My legs gave out, and I collapsed onto her couch, shaking uncontrollably. Fear I'd been holding back for months poured out all at once. She wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and didn't ask questions right away. She waited until my breathing slowed. That kindness alone made me cry harder. When I finally told her everything, the pills, the fainting, the whispered conversations, her face went pale. "This isn't neglect," she said firmly. "This is abuse, and possibly worse." The next morning, she drove me to a new doctor. One Bryce didn't know, one I chose. Blood tests were taken immediately. The doctor returned with a look I will never forget. "You have elevated levels of medication that were never prescribed to you," he said carefully. "Taken over time, this could have caused organ failure or death." The word death echoed in my ears. Margaret squeezed my hand. "Could it have been accidental?" she asked. The doctor shook his head. "No, the dosages were intentional." That was when denial finally died. We filed a report. I hated myself for hesitating, but fear does that. Fear tells you family should be protected, even when they're dangerous. But the doctor's report left no room for excuses. Police officers came to Margaret's house that afternoon. I gave my statement with trembling hands, every sentence heavier than the last. Then my phone rang. "Bryce." I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. Margaret nodded. "Put it on speaker." I answered. "Where are you?" Bryce demanded. His voice wasn't worried. It was angry. "You left without telling us." "I'm safe," I said quietly. There was a pause. Then Tanya's voice cut in, sharp and panicked. "You're overreacting. This is ridiculous." "Then you won't mind the police asking questions," Margaret said calmly. The line went dead. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept expecting headlights outside the window. But morning came quietly. Too quietly. Then the call arrived. Bryce and Tanya had been questioned. Their house searched. And what the police found confirmed everything. Crushed pills hidden in the trash. Altered medication bottles. Internet searches about natural death in elderly diabetics. It was all there. But the hardest part wasn't the evidence. It was learning that while they planned my ending, they had already started planning what came after selling the house. Dividing assets, moving Tessa to another school. They hadn't just prepared for my death. They had organized their lives around it. But the most painful truth was still waiting. Because when my granddaughter finally spoke to the authorities, she revealed something even I didn't know. When the officers spoke to Tessa, they didn't expect much. Children are often overlooked in cases like this, seen as confused, unreliable, too young to understand. But my granddaughter told the truth with a clarity that shook everyone in the room. She described how Tanya would count my pills at night, how Bryce warned her not to help Grandma too much, how she heard them arguing about money and timelines when they thought she was asleep. She even drew pictures, dark crayon, sketches of me lying in bed, while voices whispered nearby. One drawing showed a calendar with a red circle around a date. That was when they said everything would be finished, Tessa explained softly. That picture alone changed everything. Child Protective Services stepped in immediately. Tessa was removed from the house that same day. She cried, begging not to go back. "I don't want to live with people who hurt Grandma," she said. Neither did I. The investigation moved quickly after that. Charges were filed. Lawyers got involved. The house I had once cleaned quietly, trying not to take up space, became a crime scene. Bryce didn't look at me when we crossed paths in the courthouse hallway. Tanya stared as if I had betrayed them. I felt no guilt, only relief. I moved into a small apartment near Margaret's home. It wasn't grand. The furniture didn't match, but every corner belonged to peace. I controlled my medication. I slept without fear. I breathed freely for the first time in years. Tessa came to stay with me on weekends. We baked cookies. We planted flowers. She laughed again. Real laughter. One evening, she asked me a question I'll never forget. "Grandma, if you hadn't left, would you still be here?" I hugged her tightly. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I left. And that's what matters." Healing didn't happen overnight. There are days I still wake up afraid. Days my hands shake when someone offers me a drink. Trauma leaves echoes, but strength does too. I learned something important through all of this. Silence does not protect you. Love does not excuse cruelty. And family does not have the right to end your story early. If you are elderly, vulnerable, or living in fear, please hear me. Pay attention to your body. Listen to your instincts. And never ignore a child who is afraid for you. Because sometimes the smallest voice is the one trying hardest to save your life. And if my story reaches even one person in time, then surviving was only the beginning.